Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I want to talk about some things you maybe have not thought of, and I'd like you to think about these because these are very, very important for recovery. And these are some of the things I work on, which in many ways I'm different than some other of those who guide people in their recovery process. And I want you to listen, and towards the end, I think you'll understand better why these are so important for you. Many who are in recovery for being adult children of narcissists and are working on their recovery, of course, deal with judgmentalism, perfectionism, shame and guilt, maybe even should I go no contact or low contact. And all those things are important things for recovery. And none of those things are bad to work on. They're all important to work on. And everyone is at a different place in their recovery process because it's all unique and individual to us. However, I've worked with broken individuals and adult children of narcissists, adult children of dysfunctional families for 40, 45 years. And here are some of the things that are often missed. And this is after reading 1,000 self-help books. I remember donating 1,000 books to the seminary that I attended. So it's not for a lack of looking out there and trying to find answers. I've certainly done that. And many of those books were very good books. But often they didn't talk about these things. And I think these things are so critical for really gaining more self-awareness, more self-definition, more self-regulation, and also feeling more at peace and not being as upset and traumatized by the past. So, number one is hidden systems anxiety. That's something you won't find or read much about out there. You will read about anxiety, which we should learn about, there is no doubt. But there's anxiety underneath anxiety. And if you understand family systems anxiety or the family anxiety that gets passed on generation to generation, then you can at least eliminate or at least work on reducing one layer of that anxiety, even if you have other anxiety from trauma, being treated badly, being abused, having fears. I know a lot of people who work on the top level from things that have happened and they have fears and have some real anxiousness about life, and they work on those all the time and leave the family systems anxiety untouched. And then I find that they have a more difficult time with their recovery. So, underlying family of origin systems anxiety. I've even got videos on that topic, and I would suggest you take a look at those. Calmness is everything, systems anxiety or systems feelings versus true feelings. Most of my videos, you'll be hearing me talk about systems anxiety. That's one thing I have a lot of people, and even a lot of people who are in 12-step programs. They still have difficulty in that area. Number two, we develop a self within the context of a system. Well, that's called self-differentiation work. And what I find in most people's recovery plans is they have an individualistic, non-systems view of self and becoming a self. And they struggle in many ways as a result of that. But we want to develop a self within the context of a system self, because that's where our real self lies. There is no self, for example, if I can say it this way. It's not, I think of a systems work and systems perspective versus a self perspective, meaning self-psychology. In other words, it doesn't matter what you're all doing, it's just whatever I'm doing. And no, I'm always interacting with relationship systems all the time. And if I can develop a self within those relationship systems and how they function, your recovery can become stronger, firmer, more confidence, and fewer relapses. What I found is if people don't think in a systems way and they only think, okay, I'm just going to love myself, so I'm going to sit in front of a mirror and say, I love you and you're a wonderful person. That may even be a good practice. I'm not against that practice. The problem is what you gain from it may just as easily blow away tomorrow because it's a self that's not connected to the systems you're in, to the relationships that you're in. And I think that perspective is very important. The self won't stick if we don't take in relationship dynamics and our own stabilization within the system for adult children of narcissists. And if adult children of narcissists don't become students of the relationship systems and how they work in them, if they only focus on only themselves, this, I believe, will limit their recovery. Or maybe they won't just become experts on themselves without that systems dynamic and our understanding, and they may just become an expert on the narcissist. But an expert on the narcissist does not fully give you a self. It is education. It is information that you need. I'm not against information about narcissism or narcissists. I think learning about that can be very healing. But if that becomes your focus, then you're going to miss out on some really deep healing that will allow you to become more mature and change in very real ways and not just temporary ways that can just be blown by the wind, just like a weather vane. And I think so many people develop a recovery program where they're still just a weather vane and they haven't truly found their work of self-differentiation. Number 3, inner boundaries and emotional detachment. Now, I've been to recovery groups. I've been to 12-step groups. I understand they talk about detachment. Even the big book, even, all the books on all the recovery, they will talk about detachment. While it's an important topic, I'm not sure how deep or how far they go into it. It's certainly very important, us becoming detached, but I also know a lot of people don't fully understand detachment either. They would believe, okay, if my brother called me names and was mean to me, then I'm not going to talk to him for a month, and that's detachment. I'm going to be detached from him. No, all you're going to be is not talking to him for a month. That may be a good thing, but it's not the same thing as detachment. Detachment is about where it doesn't affect me. I don't care. It doesn't wound me. It doesn't hurt me. It's just you're on that side of the tennis net and I'm on this side of the tennis net. That's more true detachment. And so that's where inner boundaries come from. We can do external boundaries. Okay, brother, don't do that because I feel hurt when you do that. And I want to share my feelings with you. I feel hurt, shamed, and I want you not to do that. In one part and one phase of recovery, that may be a good thing to say, but that's not a good place to stay. Good thing to say, but not a good place to stay. Because you've got the don't do that anymore. Now, maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't do it. Maybe he'll do it again. But the part where you lose your power is when I feel hurt. I feel shamed. I feel guilty. You're making me feel guilty. That's not a development of internal boundaries. That's actually, I just want to tell you how you make me feel. I want to take more responsibility for my feelings. And I want to gain and grow to a place, and I've gotten closer, where, I'm not worried about what someone calls me, tells me, thinks about me. And it's not that I don't care about other people or don't value other people's beliefs or opinions. It's just that it doesn't go through my checker, my sentry, that as it comes in, I go, is that, they just said that I'm truly the narcissist, not the narcissist. No, bink, and it bounces off. That's internal boundaries when that happens. And you can learn how to do that more and more. And that's something that I do teach. I would recommend you join the online program, Your New Road to Self. Take a look at it. It's down listed in the description where you can get details about it. You also get a year's worth of group meetings with me each month to help you with that process. We just had a meeting recently. It was phenomenal. The people did a great job. And I even said a couple of smart things. Not always do I, but it really was a great meeting. And the people are there really are doing some deep and heavy learning. I want to learn how to feel less hurt, less triggered, less shamed, less guilty, less condemned, less rejected. I want to feel all that less, regardless of what they do. That's working on inner boundaries. And I just don't think I hear a lot of work described in that way. I don't want to give my power away and go, well, you just hurt my feelings so much and I felt so bad and I felt very worthless when you said that, sister, Mary. And it's like, okay, all right, you were vulnerable with her, but maybe you shouldn't even be that vulnerable with her. Maybe that's not such a wise thing to do. So not only you are saying, please don't do that. You're kind of asking for a boundary. If I don't feel the reactivity of it, if you say, Jerry, I hate you and I'm never going to talk to you again, and I don't feel the same level, I don't feel that rejection, then there's a lot more that can happen in the relationship. And I may say, well, Bob, what's going on? I didn't have any plan of leaving you or changing the relationship. I don't know what's brought you to say something like this. But I'm not shattered. My okayness is dependent upon what he does. And that's a part of the work of self-differentiation, is where my okayness and who I am is something I do and I work within the system. Within the system. And you can do that. And I think there's many ways you can do that. Check out my training. Number 4. Now, this is more common. Trauma and CPTSD. Adult children of narcissists. Many of them don't talk about trauma or CPTSD. They just talk about how bad their narcissistic parent was. But I'm going, do you hear how bad your narcissistic parent was? And they'll go, well, yeah, I told you they were bad. Okay. Do you think that affected you in a more deep way than just it being dysfunctional? In other words, traumatizing. Do you think it was trauma that you have experienced and that you're experiencing trauma? Oh, I have never thought of that. That maybe I do have some trauma. And many people who have trauma don't recognize it. And they don't identify it as trauma. And they don't identify it as CPTSD. I know many people who are out there acting out in many ways or experiencing pain or difficulty. And I'm going, the reason they're doing that is they've been traumatized. And if you were to tell them that, they'd say, I have no idea what you're talking about. That doesn't even make sense. Because we've been programmed, for sure. So, again, many ACONs become more focused on the narcissist and learning about the narcissist than their own trauma and their trauma responses and triggering and how trauma works. They see themselves as ACONs, but not necessarily as trauma victims. They don't see that. And I think that often is missed from a number of folks. I think it's becoming less because there's more talk about CPTSD and trauma these days. So I still think it's missed. And fortunately, I think it's moving in the right direction. Fifthly, the turned off self-awareness and self-direction switches. ACONs, ACOAs, adult children of alcoholics, adult children of dysfunctional families, of divorced families, of abused families, of all of them. Many of them will say, I've just never been able to change that. I just don't know how to do that. Well, they would come to me, and I don't know how many people I've talked to, and those of you who maybe have worked with me, maybe you can remember, they come to me and go, I just feel so much shame or guilt when I talk to my father. And I just hate that, and I don't want to experience those feelings. And I said, are you sure you don't want to experience those feelings? Oh, absolutely not. I want that to be gone. And then I go, well, then why is it still there? Well, because I don't know how to let go of it. And they think about it as a how question rather than a when question. It's a when. There's no handbook on how do you give up guilt. At some point you have to go, okay, I'm done with this. Please don't think I'm just saying it's just easy and everybody's stupid if they haven't done it. My gosh, I held on to guilt, shame, anger for I don't know how long. I mean, I'm not putting anybody down. I know how difficult it can be, and it can be difficult. And part of the reason why it is difficult is because if I let go of the guilt, there are downsides to that. For example, my guilt, I remember. I could not give up my guilt towards my mother. Could not do it. I tried everything. I read books. I went to everybody in every place. And I tried to deal with my guilt and go, I don't want this, but it just keeps, I can't get rid of it. And it so controls me. And then I remember a therapist who said, well, if I said, okay, you'll never feel guilt again, I'm going to wave this magic wand. You won't feel guilt again. And toward your mom, what would be the downsides? And I'd say, well, I know what the upsides would be. I'd feel better. He said, no. I understand what the upsides would be. And I know you know what the upsides would be, Jerry. What would be the downsides? Well, I don't know. I can't imagine holding on to this guilt is a good thing. And would protect me from downsides. Said, let's think about this more. And I want you to think about it and come back. And then I came back and I realized if I gave up my guilt regarding my mother, we wouldn't have a relationship. So if my fantasy is I want a mother who will love me or be with me forever, I better keep this guilt because that'll keep our relationship going. And so it became very serious, and I began to understand that better and also began to become more ready to let it go. Now, the freedom comes in letting it go. It doesn't mean I have to end my relationship with my mother, but I may have to give up my fantasies about what kind of relationship I wanted with my mother. And and I talk about that in my work, in the online program, etc. We have many switches and programs that we get programmed growing up to shut off and to shut out early in life. You've been taught to turn off some of these switches, if not all. And this is the, not how but when kind of dilemma that we have. I have switched off the I cannot know that switch. We don't notice. We're in denial. We've switched off that switch. I can't, and you've been taught to, but I'm just saying we've switched it off. We also have the power to switch it on. The I cannot choose that switch has been off. So then we can't choose. I don't know, what, if you were to choose what you really wanted to do and who you really were, who would that be? Oh, I don't know. Because I have that switch turned off. That's why. And I need to work on psychologically turning it back on. So I can't, if I don't know, how is anybody going to know? Because if you're talking about my own self, who's going to know myself if it's not me? I mean, it has to come from within me. But I have that switch turned off, and I was programmed to turn that switch off. The I don't know the right thing to do switch, that can be turned off. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Well, and it's so amazing. I will talk with people and they'll talk about, Jerry, I want you to work with me. I want you to help me formulate a response to my family or to my parents or siblings or whomever about this issue. And I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to set a boundary. I don't know any of that. And I'm going, well, first of all, I really don't believe it's that you don't know how to do that. I think what you want to say is you're not ready to do that yet. And that's perfectly okay. It's okay to be not ready. That's okay. But if we fool ourselves and say, I can't, that's kind of problematic. That's going to keep us stuck. And so we'll work on it. And I will go, okay, if nobody got mad in your family, nobody criticized you, everybody and anybody would be happy with whatever response or things you would come up with, and you were to communicate that, what would you communicate? And you had the freedom to do that. They tell me that, and I'm going, I couldn't have decided it any better than what you just decided. I didn't have any extra knowledge than what you just did. The knowledge, the hope, the power, all of that's in there. Getting it unlocked is the work, I believe, of self-differentiation. And I think that's something we can all do. The I don't know what I feel switch. Whenever somebody says, well, I don't know what I feel. Well, could you change that to, I'm not ready to tell you what I feel? Oh, okay. Well, then I'm not ready to tell you what I feel. Good. I feel better about that. You probably should feel better. Maybe a little confusing, but there's nobody who's going to know your feelings but you. And I believe you've been given the gift to know them. Early on, you had to turn off that switch because you better turn off that switch because that's going to be problematic in a narcissistic home. You better not have feelings. And you may learn that very, very quickly. I don't know what to think switch. I don't know how to give X up. I don't know how to give it guilt, shame, all those things I've just mentioned, that example. So I hope that you'll join me for the online program. Please subscribe. Please comment. Please like the video. I want to thank you for joining me. Have a great day and be wise.